kick it.
Let's kick it. Yeah. Wow. Saturday show. Sports program. March 16th, I think. The day before St. Patrick's Day. The day before Selection Sunday. A lot of tournaments going on. SEC tournament. All the tournaments are going on. A lot of big ones. I watched Florida and Auburn.
Today is my favorite day that's happened in the sports year so far, and I said that a few weeks ago, and this one tops it.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a lot of other stuff going on too. A lot of other stuff going on. We haven't been on the show for a little bit here, so it's it's been some time. I had a big old project I had to work on, and that sucked for school. Man, it's getting rough. It's getting rough. Semester's almost over though, and I'm excited. We had a show on Wednesday. It was Alicia and I pretty much just we got caught up on some NAIA sports, as well as I did want to have a show. This was actually under your suggestion, was to have a show while it was still relevant that Antonio Brown is now a Raider and Le'Veon Bell took a pay cut to go to the Jets. And
if you want to call it a pay cut,
I mean, kind of.
It was the amount of money he originally wanted from Pittsburgh, right?
Right, yeah.
But then all
they
of a
could.
sudden,
It just goes to show
more.
they could have kept him if they would have done the deal early.
They could have kept both of them, but hindsight for me is this: they didn't win with both of them.
Yep.
So they gave it a go. They had both of those two players in their athletic primes for like what age that position would be their prime. So it didn't work. I don't think they did the wrong thing. I don't think they got enough value for Antonio. But I don't want to do too much of that on this show because there's so much other stuff to talk about. Today is one of those days where I don't have enough time to watch all the things that I want to. So when I get off of this, I will watch UFC London, which I believe the main card starts right when the show's over at 2 for me.
All right. Okay.
Then when that's going to get done, I'm going to have probably about an hour and a half to watch a college basketball game.
Mm-hmm.
And then right at about 6:30 my time, our teams play each other, Blazers, Spurs. And immediately following that, Pac-12 championship, Washington, Oregon, and I cannot wait to discuss that game on this show.
Yes, and so I'm gonna watch our teams play each other, Portland and San Antonio. I'm gonna watch it at because what time does that start? So it's
6:30, so 5:30 your time.
So I'm gonna start watching it before, but I'm going to a friend's house to play some tabletop games. So I'm gonna watch it on my phone. Thank you, YouTube TV. We can say that on this show.
Well, I mean, it's just nice that we live in a place or a time period where no matter where we're at, and no matter how many non-sports fans are there, we can just pull out our phone.
Isn't that wonderful?
I've been to Hogan's multiple times. For those listeners who don't know what Hogan's is, it's a bar back home that doesn't have televisions.
Right.
And a lot of people who go there don't like sports ball. And what I like to do is spend my entire time there watching games on my phone.
Can you also say that Hogan's might be one of 3 bars in this area, maybe one of 2 bars? I don't know. It's literally one of the only ones that does not have TV in sports.
You know what? I read a lot of reviews on places that I want to go here, and people will say things like, there's no TVs. I like that place. You know what I mean? Like, that's actually something that people enjoy. Right. And I agree with that. But there's just sometimes, as a sports fan, when you're out, and you're out because the other people want to be out.
Right. It just depends on the night.
You just want to peek in on the game. I'm not saying I'm going to spend the whole 3 hours I'm out watching the Spurs game. But if I want to, if I hear the game's close and there's 5 minutes left in it and I want to pull my phone out for 5 minutes and see what happens, I'm gonna do it.
During the playoffs this last year, I watched Dallas and Dallas and Seattle play each other. And we went to Hogan's because we wanted to go eat dinner, and I had it on my phone, and 5 other people in the bars who I think got drug out by their wives or girlfriends hovered around my phone like it was a little campfire and watched the end of the game.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic.
It was pretty good. But anyway.
there's just certain things you don't want to miss. I'll continue.
There's a lot going on, though. A lot going on. So yeah, we covered those two. There really isn't much to say about Antonio Brown now that you can't hear in any other TV show or radio show. So what it is, what it is, and same with Le'Veon Bell. It's kind of interesting because I do like Sam Darnold, and I wouldn't consider myself like an anti-Jets person by any means.
Yeah, but you're a pro Darnold person,
right? Exactly. So. And I've never disliked the Jets ever. I have no reason to dislike that team. So I don't know. I kind of like it. I'm kind of interested to see what they do with them. I thought a bigger one is Odell Beckham Jr. going to the Browns, and then in the same week you see Golden Tate go to the Giants, and I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, I'm big on reading draft grades, even though I never agree with them, and a lot of those moves got bad grades, at least for one of the two teams. And the Giants got thrashed for going out and signing Golden Tate. And, I mean, I get it. He's old, and he has a history of being just as loud as Odell Beckham is, just not as talented. So I guess that makes him a little quieter. But, yeah, so that kind of seems like a weird thing. But I think they're just ready to move on. They definitely broke up a very good combination of wide receiver running back. But I am not with you on the Browns getting Odell being bigger than the Jets getting Le'Veon Bell at all. I actually think that Le'Veon Bell move is extremely underrated. I know they made a bunch of other moves that on defense. One of them fell through. I know that they went out and signed C.J. Mosley, or was it C.J.? No, it was another linebacker from the Vikings, and then last minute used that to leverage a better deal with Minnesota. So right when I was gonna toot all the horn of all the moves that the Jets made on defense, they lost one of them. But still, I don't think the Browns are the big winners of free agency right now, and I know everyone else is anointing them Super Bowl champions already. But I don't think Odell Beckham's a huge signing. Name the last big wide receiver signing that won a team a Super Bowl. It's never happened. I think that the Jets and the 49ers are the two teams that I'm really eyeballing right now for having huge years next year.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like the Jets move a lot. I think it's going to be really interesting to see Le'Veon Bell play. For one thing, can I just say I'm genuinely excited to see Le'Veon Bell play again. He's really fun to watch play. So I'm just glad he's going to be in the game. Honestly, at a certain point, I didn't really care where he goes. I'm kind of glad he's out of Pittsburgh just because I'm tired of that noise.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm honestly kind of getting to where I'm not saying that I'm ready for it, but I might be semi looking towards the future of a post Ben Steelers.
Right.
I just want to tread lightly on that because I'm very grateful that he's been our quarterback for the last decade and plus. But I mean, some of it's not all Le'Veon Bell's fault. It's not all, or I mean, especially with Antonio Brown. Like, Ben has a history of like calling out people and he makes a lot of noise. I don't know. Like maybe I'll be excited for Rudolph. I don't know.
I don't think Rudolph's going to be the guy who takes his place at all. But yeah, I would say be wary of that because Ben's a once in a generation type quarterback.
I know. And
I think nobody says it better than Larry Fitzgerald did because he's friends with Antonio Brown, and they obviously asked him to comment on the Antonio Brown trade or wanting to leave Pittsburgh, and he said he needs to realize that when you have a all-pro Hall of Fame quarterback, you don't know what you got till it's gone, and some of us don't have one of those our entire career. Now, Larry did have Carson and Kurt Warner back in the day, but I would say that the bulk of his career has been with a bunch of people in between. So that's someone that I would say that advice translates all the way across the board when it comes to Ben being gone.
Plus,
I do like what the Raiders have done this offseason, though.
Yeah. I will throw in there real quick though too. I am still treading very lightly on my Ben comment, mostly also because I do remember the dark ages of Neil O'Donnell and then sadly Cordell Stewart. I mean, like I don't want to go back into that. I liked Cordell Stewart.
I mean, it's hard to find a franchise guy,
Yeah.
so I would definitely be weary of it. But yeah, so I would say if I had to pick my favorite free agencies so far, Raiders probably 3, just because I think that they did a lot besides 4. What it seems like to me is this. We thought this would be a multiple year rebuild after they stripped down. And now with the moves they're making and having 3 number 1 picks and another pick at the beginning of the second round, it seems like now they're saying we just took care of one whole side of the football and we can draft the rest. Or maybe they just keep loading up on offense. Who knows? But they're saying that they at least expect to win some games this year.
Well, you remember
two, I like the Jets. Keep going.
Oh, I was sorry. When Gruden was with the Buccaneers, he did the same thing with the defense. Right. It got dismantled. They went 7-9, I think, that second after they won the Super Bowl. I mean,
yeah,
he's an offense guy. Okay, go ahead, Jets.
2, I like the Jets. I think that it ended up not being
as good
as it could have been, but they made moves on offense and defense. They made moves on every level of their defense, defensive line, linebacker, and defensive. Last minute yesterday, I believe they got Poole from the Falcons, which I know a lot of people are pretty high on. He went from a undrafted rookie free agent to starting for us last season. Personally, I've watched him choke in big games, so I'm glad he's gone, but I think he will be a big help to the Jets. And then finally, the 49ers. I know I kind of already spoiled the 49ers and Jets being my top 2, but 49ers, Jason Verrett, cornerback. A lot of people don't like the Quan Alexander at linebacker pickup. I love that pickup. Trying to think of who else they made moves on. They made move on Tevin Coleman. So, I mean, their coach was the offensive coordinator when Tevin Coleman was at his best in Atlanta. So I think that they're basically saying, like, we're ready to go this year as well. And that is a defense or a division where the Rams are going to be bad. I don't think people realize the Rams are not going to be as good as they were last year. It's like, I shouldn't say bad, but they are going to
not be as good.
Who wins the loses the Super Bowl and comes back and makes the playoffs?
I cannot wait to do our preseason picks. I cannot wait to do our preseason picks because I had what I thought might be a hot take, but it's not going to be a hot take now after having heard you. No, I don't think the Rams go to the playoffs again.
Yeah, and I think a couple teams that redeemed themselves with a slow or a weird start in free agency that kind of picked up would be the Bears and the Ravens. I was kind of shaking my head at both of them at first, and now I'm like, oh, they knew exactly what they were doing. Teams that I absolutely hate, and you're probably not going to like this. The Steelers, number 1. Who have they picked up? I mean, so far I've just seen them pick up like a backup defensive back so far.
Yeah.
And so all they've done is let people go, so you can't really justify that. The complete overhaul of the Kansas City defense, they just let go of 2 All-Pros and almost for nothing. And one of them, D Ford. Oh, the other one who went to San Francisco. San Francisco is loading up on pass rushers. They're slowly pulling in guys that play 4-3 because that's what they're trying to do, is switch from a 3-4 to a 4-3. But until I see the end product, I don't like what Kansas City is doing. And, yeah, Pittsburgh obviously don't like. But, yeah, there's no other team that I'm really just completely shaking my head at so far. There's some teams where, like the Saints, I'm like, is Latavius Murray really better than Mark Ingram at your backup running back position, considering how much they do run the ball? And then Buffalo signing Cole Beasley made me laugh a little bit, but they also got John Brown, so I feel like they kind of negated that with another really solid pickup. But one thing I think we should talk about is the Mariota and Tannehill being on the same team now situation.
And I think we were kind of texting about it already.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's going to be great for both of them.
But yeah, but aren't they they're
very different
players.
Yeah, they're very similar players. Very similar players. Yeah, and they so what I like about it is I think it'll put some fire under them both. What I don't like about it is I actually like both quarterbacks, and I would hate to see one of them just fall off.
Yeah, not going to play at all. But
so I don't like that.
don't you feel like they're both almost guaranteed to play? Like
Maybe
they both get hurt so much.
Yeah.
One of them's gonna get hurt. Whoever wins the starting job, or whoever they think is going to win the starting job gets hurt in the preseason, and then the other guy ends up starting.
Yeah.
I think as long as what they need to do, and I think they are trying to do this, they are trying to finally get some weapons on offense.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they would make a huge push for Antonio Brown, and it sounds like they at least tried. But I feel like if they would have been able to pull him in, I feel like it would have been great for either of these quarterbacks, because I think Tannehill was the best when he had Landry.
Yep. Well, and didn't Miami also make a push for Teddy Bridgewater, who did not go?
Right. I mean, he stayed in New Orleans. And maybe he knows he's the heir apparent now to Drew Brees. That really depends on how much longer Drew Brees plays, because we all know what's happened to every heir apparent for Tom Brady. They just never got their chance.
They're not in New England anymore.
They're all not in New England, or they're retired.
Yeah, man, that is crazy.
Yeah, and then I guess there's one more team I'm slightly shaking my head at. So the Jets did actually sign C.J. Mosley. He wasn't the one I was trying to think of. I was thinking of Barr. So they would have gotten Barr and Mosley. So they would have had two Pro Bowl linebackers join their team. And the people that they had kept were already not too shabby. But the other team I guess I can't shake my head at, but I want to, is the Packers, because the Packers can never really pull in big-name free agents.
Yeah.
But there are rumors, because Jordy Nelson was cut from the Raiders, that he'll either re-sign with the Raiders for cheaper or go back to Green Bay for almost nothing.
Well, I'm sure Rodgers would like that.
Yeah. I mean, I bet Rodgers could get one or two more good years out of Jordy, where I don't think Derek Carr could. Right. Although he is great in the slot, and maybe re-signing with the Raiders, and I know they picked up Terrell Williams with Antonio Brown. I mean, that's basically setting Jordy Nelson up in the slot if he wants to return. So that's something to keep in mind. I do like the Mariota-Tannehill combination, actually. The reason I was worried about it at first is because I am a open fan of Marcus Mariota, and I'm worried that Tannehill could take his job.
Right, so. and on the flip side of that, I am an open fan of Tannehill, and I'm like, oh man, that kind of scares me that he would get sent to, a team that has, because I like Mariota too. I still think you go. Mm-hmm. There are worse quarterbacks their teams are going with. Well, they were. The Jaguars was the team I was referring to. The team going with a bad quarterback.
I guess we never really talked about it, but what's up with Nick Foles getting paid so much?
Yeah, I don't know. And also keeping in mind that they're out. So they paid Blake Bortles a bunch too, when they went to the playoffs. So after that next season, they paid him a bunch to be their quarterback. And so they're kind of out that now. And now they paid Nick Foles a bunch, or they're going to pay him a bunch. Like, seems risky. Man, I don't know. I still a smart move to take Nick Foles. Maybe.
I think they needed him, but if they're not willing to bolster that offense, then how is Nick Foles going to do any better in Blake Bortles?
Right.
Except for maybe just be a better game manager, which is, I mean, probably what they want. But
is Bortles going to be able to go anywhere?
Huh?
Is Bortles going to be able to go anywhere?
So I guess what do we know now? We know now that at least for like a 1-year fill, unless they make a move in the draft, we know that Miami needs somebody. So Tyrod Taylor, Blake Bortles, one of you guys needs to step into that position.
I would take Tyrod Taylor over Bortles, obviously, but wouldn't it be funny if Bortles is one of those guys that's like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who like goes to a team and now the rest of his career plays like the second string, but then has kind of a cute little renaissance in his like later years? Yeah, I could see it. Like one season where Bortles has like like another good season, but he's been a backup for like the last 4 years.
Well, it all depends. So this all really depends what Miami does in the draft. I mean, maybe they're planning on making a move on a quarterback, and we just don't know about it. It sounded like what they said a couple months ago was that they were. I mean, they were the team that openly admitted to tanking, right? So they're like, we are already eyeballing that 2020 draft.
Right.
So, I mean, they were pretty blatantly obvious about it. They didn't hide it. So, but who knows? Maybe that's smoke and mirrors, right? Maybe they got their eyes on Kyler Murray and they're just trying to tuck that bone away so no one sees it.
Or maybe they have eyes for maybe Rosen.
Right. I mean, maybe they know that Arizona wants to get rid of Rosen, and
maybe Rosen. Maybe. I still think New York. I still think the Giants would benefit really well with Rosen, but
I do too, and that's where I thought he would go in the first place.
Yeah.
Last year. So I was surprised that we haven't heard anything yet. But also, man, I think Arizona would regret making that move. I've already said it on the show, but I would be happy for Rosen to get out of Arizona because I think that team's going to be trash, and I don't want him to become a quarterback who loses his career to being on a team that doesn't know what to do with him. So,
yeah, I agree.
I do think he would fit that system. It's funny that people are saying that that's not his style, but I think that if that is the future of the NFL and that's why they brought in the coach that they did, then it should be able to fit any young quarterback in the NFL. But Rosen to New York, I would have liked if Odell was still there.
Yeah.
Because I think that would have been an instant turnaround for Rosen because, one, he would get better protection, even though the Giants had a rough first half of the year protecting Eli. I think they picked it up at the end. And then he'd have a very, very good safety blanket at running back in Saquon Barkley. Not that David Johnson's bad. David Johnson 2 years ago was the best running back in the NFL, but things change really fast.
Rosen would thrive really well in both of those markets too, both New York markets.
Right.
Just based on even him being being Jewish. I mean, honestly, could you imagine the New York Football Giants or the New York Jets picking up a really good Jewish quarterback? I'm not even kidding about that. That'd be insane for those cities. They have a huge population, and
just think about going from Eli to him as well, intelligence-wise.
Well, yeah, and even it's just how boring Eli is too. I mean, it's nothing against his personality, but he's boring. And then you get young. I was listening to I can't remember what show it was a while back, but one of their hosts is a Jewish guy, and he was just talking about how he would love. I hadn't even thought of it. That wasn't an original thought. I'll give all credit. I just can't remember the show, but he was just like, oh man, I'd love for him to come to New York. He's like, come to New York. He's like, your people will welcome you. It was pretty funny. But
I don't know. You're right. He's got to go somewhere, and so I guess a team to keep an eye on would definitely be Miami right now because they're either up to something or they're really just planning on tanking. So
again, I think he would do well on that market, even based on that in Miami.
But where this all started, I am not buying the Cleveland Brown hype yet.
No.
We kind of intentionally created it last year on the show.
Yeah.
By them being our official team, but this year, I mean...
No, they're not our official team this year.
No, and they're in a tough division. Like I said, though...
We're going to switch teams.
I'm really excited for the Jets, though. I genuinely mean that, and I think that's good for the NFL because the Patriots, let's be real, have been handed that division for a decade now, and because they've been handed that division for a decade now, I mean, they've probably bolstered Tom Brady's career... Mm-hmm. Exponentially. Let's be real. If Tom Brady was in the NFC, take the entire Patriots team and put him in the NFC or any other division in football, and they don't have the Super Bowl rings that they have. So
yeah,
and I don't think that gets talked about enough. Tom Brady this year might have had the easiest path he's ever had to a Super Bowl, and he's already had a lot of easy paths. He was in a division with the tanking Jets, the tanking Dolphins, and they're probably not trying to tank Bills, but they weren't good enough not to tank. So,
Also, we haven't talked about this prior to the show, but it's gotten me thinking. You might have selected the official team of sports program for the next season. Actually, you maybe might have. The Jets would be a good one.
We'll debate it. We'll
think about it. Who's gonna be on? Do we know who's on Hard Knocks yet?
No, I think all we know is what teams don't want to be on Hard Knocks.
All of the teams.
All of them. No one wants to be on it, but we'll see who gets stuck on it, and maybe they'll be our team.
You know, it's kind of funny. Before we move on, wouldn't it be? Almost would be better if the Browns were on the season on it again, because the only thing that was really interesting about it last season was Hugh Jackson, but now I kind of want to see that locker room now, with Odell Beckham Jr. and.
I think it would be a great idea. I mean, I think the ratings would never be higher if they brought a team back for a second year to see how things have changed.
Yeah, that would be. They should hire us, HBO. If you're listening,
they should. I don't think HBO is doing things right. They don't have the most popular shows on television.
Yeah, not the most dynamic by any means. I just watched all of Barry season 1, by the way. So very good.
Barry was fantastic.
Very
Barry was
good
fantastic. Show. Obviously, Westworld, Game of Thrones.
Yep.
Curb Your Enthusiasm will never die.
If any network would benefit from yours and my help, it would definitely be HBO.
Maybe Star should hire us.
There you go. They could actually.
Yeah, that seems more up my alley.
We're more of a Stars crew. All right. So, oh man, I'm so excited for how the NBA season has been turning out. I for somebody who likes LeBron, I can honestly say I'm actually glad he's not going to be in the playoffs. And it's mostly just because it's cool that we were going to see most likely Golden State, but then maybe, we definitely won't see Cleveland. We won't see LeBron. We're going to see somebody new from the East completely, which is awesome. And I'm still not 100% sold. We're just that Golden State's the shoe-in either. I really think that some of these teams in the West can put up a fight at least in the playoffs.
I mean, I'm pretty convinced on Golden State, but I said before the show started, I think that their biggest threat is actually multiple teams from the East, just because when it comes down to finals time, I think there's going to be so much on the line that the East finally has teams not only with a superstar, because I mean LeBron James was a superstar, but they have teams that have great role players along with the superstar. So whether it's Kawhi paired with Siakam and Lowry and Ibaka, or it's Milwaukee that not only has the starting lineup to go around Giannis with Bledsoe and Lopez, but they also have like Mirotic coming off the bench, and they made quite a few moves to where they're going to have shooters coming off the bench, which I think is what you need come playoff time. But yeah, I think we're all, maybe besides for you, the rest of us are going to sleep on Houston until it happens there. But I will say this, for someone who is, I basically bashed Houston all first half of the season because I felt like they just downgraded so much from a team that was right there last year, And I was just like, what are they doing? They were right there last year. Why change? And they did. And now, come the end of the season and seeing how much their defense has improved from last year, I'm almost okay with this. Let's play defense and hero ball, which I never thought would be a successful method. But I think it works against Golden State, and I think we've already seen it twice this year. Because I think I think they're 2-1 against against Golden State.
Right. I also I don't know. I admittedly I have my bias now since since I've been a lifelong fan of the Portland Trailblazers since this last summer. But I just, from watching the Portland games and any times they've played Golden State this season, it's been a really good game. They played really good games against OKC. Like, I still feel like Portland could make a push at some, in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to get swept. I don't think they're going to get swept by whoever they play. They still might lose in the first round, but I don't think they'll get swept this time, that's nice for that team. I still think I'd be really interested to see Houston and Golden State play, and I still think OKC and Golden State is going to be a really good. That could be a really good run.
And that game is tonight.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We had a technical difficulty and the internet. Just kind of a little silent spot here during the podcast. I'll be editing this part out. That's pretty cool. So that's fun and a good time for everybody. Oh my gosh. What a day. Let's try this out again, huh? Oh my god. Technical difficulties. I'm going to go to standby.
Yeah, because on my end, it no longer said I had a landline connection.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, well, let me follow this Ethernet cable all the way back to the kitchen. And it was all still connected. But then I realized like the power cord for the internet was just hanging out of the wall. So
all right. Well, I think it's 40 minutes into the show, so I'll just cut that part out of the podcast and this part where we're talking about it.
And this part where we're discussing it.
Yeah.
You might need to refresh me because it looks like I'm frozen. But maybe not.
I just didn't have you pulled up. Okay, so Golden State though, it's Golden State and OKC tonight. That's what we were just going to talk about. So this could be. I'm really excited to watch this game because at this point, all these games are just implication games. You know what?
Right.
What can it look like? You know, and man, I mean, Paul George has really taken the forefront of OKC in my opinion.
Completely agree.
He's absolutely the face of that franchise, and just right now at least. And I was watching them the other night, and it's like last week, and it seems like it's on nights when there's just some nights where Westbrook will he'll pass the ball enough and not keep taking shots and missing.
Right.
And then you're like, and you can see it early on in the games when he's starting to do that, and you're like, this team's gonna beat him bad, you know. And
right.
and that's exactly what happens. But then you can also see it towards the beginning of the game where Russell's kind of like not passing the ball enough, getting it to other people, and then you're like, It's like he swings differently, just based on maybe whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, I think that does happen at times. I think for the most part, though, he is really refining the amount he does that. So
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's just the fact that his shot is going in now, so I am noticing it less. But
Oh
I mean,
yeah, that's true.
the guy is averaging 23, 11, and 10 a game. This would be the third straight year averaging a triple double, which no one thought someone would do that for one season. So I'm not going to knock Russ. I think that whatever happened in Utah last week lit a fire under his ass. And now I would say, although Paul George is their best player, offensively and defensively, I still actually think Russell Westbrook is the heart and soul of that team. So
yeah, I mean, he's holding them together. He's been there the longest. He's their veteran.
And I kind of hope they stay where they're at in the seeding, because right now it is Oklahoma City and Portland playing in the first round because they're the 4 and the 5 seed.
Right.
And the way that those two teams have played each other this year, every single game, leads me to believe that why would you not want to see that again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it sucks that one of them is going to go home in the first round, but that series is so good, everyone's going to want to see it. And if they don't know that they want to see it, and the playoffs are the first time seeing these two teams play each other, they are going to be pleasantly surprised.
Man, the 3, 4, 5, 6 spot, like that middle ground there, that is like the scariest place to be, I feel like. I mean, like, obviously you're scared if you're the Clippers going into the playoffs playing playing Golden State, and you're scared if you're the Jazz. I mean, I don't know. Well, maybe not. I think the Jazz and the Nuggets will be a good series. I don't know if that's not a gimme for either one of those, to be honest.
I would love if the Jazz passed us, so we could so the Spurs could play the Nuggets in the first round, because I think we would beat them. Not only do I think we would beat them, but I don't even think it would be a 7-game series. We'd beat them. So the Jazz might be very comfortable right where they're at.
Yeah.
The Rockets have just been better than the Spurs head to head this year. So that's where it's at, though. So where the series line up right now is probably the best for ratings. Like, that's an all Texas matchup, Houston, San Antonio, first round. I think for ratings and for the fans, that's easy to travel. So I think that's perfect. I know that Portland and OKC isn't close, but for ratings, like I said earlier, those two teams are so fun against each other. I think that's going to be great. Two California teams, if it's LA and Golden State. So I think that's perfect for fans to travel and for ratings. So overall, the way things are lined up right now, it's kind of perfect. And
keep it.
Yeah, as far as fun basketball to watch, that's going to be great. As far as like how much I'm worried about a few teams because of these matchups, I mean, that's my anxiety will be at an all-time high. But imagine this. Imagine San Antonio knocks off Houston in the first round, because let's not forget, San Antonio is 11 games above 500 now. This is the most games above 500 they have been all year. And if the rodeo road trip would not have happened, they were on a massive winning streak before that, and now they're back on another one again. They've recently beat Milwaukee. I mean, they've recently beat a lot of teams that we think are really good. So I won't dwell too much on just them, but really, I believe in this first round, everyone should be worried except for Golden State. Like, I think that's how we all feel. Like, Nuggets could get upset. Houston could get upset. There's no upset in the OKC Portland series because they're so evenly matched. So either team can come out of there. And this is all just the Western Conference.
Right.
The East this year kind of looks like how the West used to look, where you're like, you see the top 4 teams and you're like, oh yeah, those are the top 4 teams. The Bucks, the Raptors, the 76ers, I would say just go ahead and give them the second round. Now, Boston and Indiana is interesting because a lot of people probably believe that Boston should be the 4. Like, everyone thinks that Boston is better than Indiana with Victor Oladipo out, but if they don't pass them and they have to play 4 out of the 7 games in Indiana, I don't know if that's a cakewalk.
Yeah, I don't either. I think the East is going to be fun to watch too. I think it's interesting that some of the teams are in there that are.
Right.
And that's one of the nice things about Cleveland being out of there and changing the landscape a little bit. I mean, the fact that we're going to see the Heat, I mean, they're not going to do well.
Well, we're not guaranteed to see the Heat yet.
Maybe. No.
They had a fun game against Milwaukee the other night, and Dwayne Wade the last few weeks has been probably one of the most fun players in the NBA to watch. But I thought Orlando or Charlotte would be in at this point, and Charlotte's a game back. Orlando's like a half game back, or they're a full game back because of the loss column. But I wouldn't rule that out. I think Miami would be out of all those teams would be the best bang for your buck against Milwaukee in the first round. I think Milwaukee sweeps Charlotte or Orlando, but it's the final year of Dwayne Wade. Let's keep our fingers crossed that he makes it at least into the playoffs. I think that'd be a good way to send him out. Even if it was a sweep, that would mean that game 4 where they got swept would at least be in Miami and he'd be on the Miami court to send him off. But
yeah. So you want to talk a little college basketball?
I think we have to. I think that's where all the true excitement is.
Yeah, I'm pulling up one of the first games start. Well, I think we'll
they've already started because like Auburn's already beat Florida, and that brings me back to something I wanted to talk about yesterday, which was that Florida LSU game. So we know there's a bunch of crazy stuff going on in LSU. Their coach is obviously suspended or had to step down currently. He says he wants to come back and coach this year. Kind of hard to make that happen when the stuff that's going on is going on. But LSU had the game yesterday. There was like really no point where Florida looked like they were the better team. And then there was that 6-point play that happened. It was a 3-point shot with a foul. So he gets the foul, gets the shot for the 3. And then there was, I believe, a double technical to make it a 6-point play. And that completely swung everything in the momentum of Florida. And then there was a couple big shots traded back and forth where I go, okay, well, LSU's not giving up. They were my pick to win the SEC tournament, which I've mentioned on the show several times now. Yeah. I thought they had it, even with I thought their back assistant coach, who's having the coach right now, was going to get teed up again and they weren't going to have a coach for the rest of the game. So that was exciting.
Right.
Then Florida wins. And then very next day, early today, Florida loses. So they're already out. Now Tennessee, Kentucky's going on. The SEC is scary this year.
Yeah. Also notable as with Zion back, they finally at least beat UNC.
I think that's the biggest news of the day. That game yesterday had the feel of not only a UNC-Duke rivalry game, it was one of the all-time greats in my opinion, but this felt like a early tournament game to me. Yeah, like it had like every feel of, the biggest sporting event of the week for sure. Zion has only missed 3 or 4 times now since he came back from injury. Shooting wise, he just looks like he's an absolute monster again. What's interesting though is that UNC could have won this game. They lost by a point, and their point guard has the ball at the end and decides not to take it to the basket, where he's finding success the entire game. And I feel like if he does, he at least gets fouled and at least ties the game. So Duke did not prove they were necessarily the better team last night. Right. And what North Carolina proved to me is that they are a top seed in this tournament for sure.
Yeah, I still feel like when the tournament comes, it's still going to come down to some. So Duke, I think what they've done this season is absolutely crazy. They've obviously lived up, in my opinion, to all of the hype they had going into the season. You know, they lived up to the hype of having, 3 NBA ready players, and then playing as good as what you would hope a team like that would play. With Coach K. So that's cool. I still don't know when it comes to, we've seen crazy things happen in the big dance, and I'm not just 100% bought into them winning that whole thing. I still think they could, but we've seen teams beat them that are good teams, and I guess the big one, the big notable one was like early on in the season, which is obviously not a huge indicator, but is when they lost against Gonzaga, and you saw a team with a bunch of players who were a little more seasoned, playing some younger guys, and and I sometimes think that maybe just is what happens to Duke in the March, in the brackets. they'll play somebody that everyone thinks they should have beat maybe, and then it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, I almost feel the opposite. I feel like even tonight Duke plays Florida State, and a lot of people are saying that this is a trap game for Duke because Florida State has the ability to guard them, and I think that's ridiculous. I don't think Florida State can guard them. I don't think this is a trap game. I think Duke wins it as impressively as they've won any other game recently. And I think that break for Zion, because I don't want to even call it an injury at this point. I want to call it a break. I think that break for Zion, the time off, is just going to make him even more of a force going into this tournament. And I honestly think they run through it. I don't even know if they see a test until they get to maybe the Final Four, if not the national championship game. I think we've also seen with teams like Gonzaga is that Gonzaga probably won't even be there come Final Four time. So I would be more weary of a Kentucky or a Tennessee giving Duke a run for their money, and I don't even think Tennessee's built to beat them. They might be built to meet them in the championship, but they're not built to beat them. Kentucky might be the only team that can go shot for shot with them by the end of this season.
Yeah, and so I will go ahead and shamelessly promote this now. We will have a bracket again for a sports program.
Yeah, you bet.
Obviously. When do the first games actually because Selection Sunday is tomorrow. When do the first games actually start?
I believe like Thursday, but there might be a play-in game the night before.
Okay, so so we'll definitely talk about it a little bit on Wednesday. It'll be kind of fun because Alicia gets to be in the bracket this year, so that'll be fun. Of course, she has, she knows stats, which is probably could be to her detriment or to her benefit.
The problem with the tournament is everyone digs too deep into the stats, and
yep.
I think it costs a lot of people. Sometimes you just have to go, this team, they're worse, but they're going to win.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to go, I like this team's jersey.
There's a church lady who she's old, but she goes to all the games, and I like her.
She's good luck. No, it's gonna be really cool though.
So one thing we haven't even mentioned yet is this year is going to be, I think, a little more top heavy than normal, because what happened this year is more than any other year. These win and you're in, these championship games.
Yeah.
There was a lot of upsets so far, which is going to take out a lot of those mid-tier people. So last year, like Tennessee, Texas, a lot of these schools that were middle of the road. Like if people remember what Tennessee did last year, I believe what they almost ran the table as an 11 seed. So
right.
A lot of those teams won't even be in this year because of what's happened in some of these smaller conferences. So like this year, for example, I know that Texas is already out. If things keep going the way they're going, maybe even TCU's out. So a lot of teams that could even, go into the tournament, have good coaches, tough players, they might not even be in there. If Oregon wouldn't have won yesterday against Arizona State, I believe Oregon would have been out. So the Pac-12 would have only gotten 2 teams.
That's crazy.
Because they won, I think Oregon is the best team in the Pac-12, and I think they're going to show it against Washington tonight. But I think Washington, Arizona State, and Oregon all really hit stride in the past month, and they are going to redeem the Pac-12 in the tournament. I see all 3 of them, at least winning their first round game.
That'd be cool.
And I could see 2 of the 3 making it to the second weekend.
Tennessee and Kentucky are playing right now, and Tennessee's winning.
I'm watching it.
Oh yeah, me too. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean Tennessee. Oh man, that Admiral Schofield dunk yesterday. I know that I'm not the first person to say this, but most notable dunk. It might not be the best dunk. I've seen people say best dunk of the college basketball season. It is the most memorable because it happened in the SEC tournament of the season, I believe.
Right.
So, and I mean, whoever wins that game is going to run train on Auburn tomorrow. So just absolutely line them up and knock them down.
They're going to do whatever they want.
they're gonna do whatever they want to do to him. So.
Oh, good
And
stuff.
now my question is, does Florida get in? Because Florida, even though they upset LSU yesterday, they just immediately turned around and lost to Auburn, but in a close game. So I don't think they should get in, but that's because there's other teams I personally want in the tournament.
Right.
But we'll see how it goes. All we can really hope now is that Seton Hall does not beat Villanova because, man, that's just another team that now has to get in because they won a conference championship. So fingers crossed, Villanova beats Seton Hall tonight, and then we don't have to worry about any other team besides for Villanova and Marquette getting in from the Big East.
Yeah, man, I'm so glad that you pay way better attention to college basketball than I do, because this would be a terrible sports program if both of us watched as much as I do. But I think next year I'm projecting for myself that I'll be watching college basketball more, especially since my interest in NBA is helping that.
I mean, it's always great to see the guys who are going to be potentially on your team or against your team in the NBA the next year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I have been watching college basketball at least more this year, simply based on the fact that I'm interested in seeing who's like the next prospect. Zion has not hurt that at all. Like the Duke team has not hurt that at all.
No, I think Duke has been fantastic for not only college basketball, but I think for people that are more college basketball fans than NBA fans, because they definitely exist.
Oh yeah.
I think they're going to bring some people over to the NBA next season.
Yeah. I think so too. I also think that Zion will have like a shoe made out of titanium or something. Like he's in it.
Yeah, it's going to be some sort of super shoe.
Yeah.
He's
wearing the Kyrie Irvings, I think, the other day. The Kyrie Irving shoes the other day.
Kyrie's got some of the best shoes. I don't want to turn this into a sneaker program, but Kyrie has hands down some of my favorite basketball shoes.
Do you wear basketball shoes ever?
I own quite a few pairs, but I'm more of like one of those people who I buy them because I'm a big fan of sneakers, so I buy way too many shoes in the first place. But every time I see them on my feet, I'm like, you look dumb. You dumb piece of shit.
Well, a little shout out to, I believe she's the chair at LCSE, Heather Van Mollem of the sports movement and science or whatever, division of movement and sports science. But, she's a big sneakerhead too, self-proclaimed
sneakerhead.
And she goes to Nike over in Portland all the time, and I think, but I don't ever see her running around in basketball shoes either. I think there is just a population of people like you and her who just genuinely like the way they look and they're cool, but just don't ever wear them.
Yeah, I mean, I wear basketball shoes when I play basketball, and that's exactly it. If I put on a pair of skinny jeans and then a pair of basketball shoes, I know how dumb I look. So I try to stay away from that altogether. You brought up a good point earlier, though, and it always makes me think about this. So I guess we both kind of brought it up, but when these college basketball players that you see in the tournament, you get really excited about. Sometimes they play for, well, I wouldn't even say you get really excited about them. You become aware of them in the tournament. Yeah. And sometimes they play for a team that you don't like. So for me, it's like someone who plays for Tennessee or Florida or, even Duke. But you see them in the tournament, you become aware of like what type of player they are. And then they go to your team in the NBA and you're like, wow. And this happens in football too. Then they go to your team. For me, it's like University of Oklahoma players if they go to the Falcons. Yeah. But you're like, I hate this guy. I hated them in college. For me, it was Matt Ryan because he went to Boston College, which is my least favorite college of all colleges. So shout out to all of you guys. But I was like, wow, we drafted a total dirtbag.
As you're explaining this situation, I'm gonna tag on the end of it. I'm letting you know with your story right now because you're actually explaining something almost dead on. So keep going, but I want to keep my thought.
But then, like, you watch your team play with this player, and you realize like how they benefit your team, and it's probably the same thing that pissed you off when you were watching them in college. You're like, oh yeah, he does hit really clutch 3-pointers, and in the tournament you're like, I hate that he hits really clutch 3-pointers, and then they join your team, and you're like, okay, well this is beneficial. I think I like this guy now. Luckily, I have not gotten a ton of that with the Spurs, but I have gotten a ton of it with the Falcons, because I mean the whole team is basically like University of Alabama and Boston College, and like schools that I just don't like watching.
Right.
But anyways, it is interesting how the transition happens, and sometimes it makes me wonder if that's why certain people don't like pro sports, because they're just so about their college team.
That could be it. Okay, so the situation you just explained is 100% how I feel about Gonzaga and Zach Collins. And that team, I'm a noted not big fan of Gonzaga.
Yeah, you're like me. You're like me, and you dislike Gonzaga.
I dislike Gonzaga.
When they lose, I lick the tears off of their fans.
Right, and last year when they were playing, and Zach Collins, he's got that bird face and that comb to the hair side, and he looks like he's Hitler Youth. And I was like,
yeah, you dumb, stupid bird.
I was like, God, I hate that big, stupid bird. And then he goes to Portland, and then we took them for my team. And now I'm like, man, I kind of like him. He's kind of tough. He's chippy. He looks
like a beautiful bird.
He's kind of a big, beautiful bird. And I kind of like that.
You hated him.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that Hitler Youth hair he has.
Yeah, it's weird, but I feel like the Hitler Youth look would really work now in 2019. I just feel like it's super in.
It's so funny.
I think girls really like guys who look like birds.
Yeah. Oh, and so what's really funny is Bree's mom is a big Gonzaga fan, and I was like, I'm not a Gonzaga fan at all. In fact, I do not like that team. But I'm like, but I really like Zach Collins, who is on Portland now. And she's like, and to even go with what you're saying, she's like, oh, she hates Zach Collins now because he left early and went to go play in the NBA. And I'm like, well, but he's good, and they picked him up. Like, it's a.
And then she was probably like, oh, also he looks like a stupid bird.
Yeah, she's like, he's a stupid bird.
Stupid Hitler Youth.
Stupid Hitler Youth hairstyle. I hate that bird.
So that's what the tournament is also good for. If you're an NBA fan, it's a good chance to like fall in love with these players a little early.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I watched Zion play in that first game back against Syracuse.
Where he didn't miss a shot.
Oh my God. And it was just, and I'll admit it, man. I was pretty awestruck. It was just, like it was as good as his stats say. It was insane to watch him.
He was a man among boys.
Yeah, and it was just ridiculous. And of course, I watched both UNC games without him.
Right.
And and I was just like, man, they're just not the same without him, but they're so good without him. It's just not the same. And then he comes back and has a game like that, just every bit of hype they could possibly have for this guy has absolutely panned out, and I think that is so insane.
Right, and I mean, best case scenario for everyone is that he goes, to the NBA and just does the exact same thing. I think that's what the NBA is ready for. They're ready for life post LeBron, which we've talked about before.
Right.
So, yeah, I think I'm ready for it. I think the world's ready for it. I actually kind of hope he's not the next star, but that's just me being, I hated LeBron when he came in. I hate LeBron now. There was a nice 2-year time period where I really respected him and gained a little bit of fanship, and I'm back to just hating the guy now. He's just awful.
Yeah, I like him. I'm gonna go opposite and say I've always really liked LeBron, and this season has soured me a little bit on him. I don't know if it's the move to LA. And when we picked the teams at the beginning of the season for me to choose for my team, I threw LA in there, but we knew we weren't going to select LA or Boston. But I threw them in there because of the history. I I don't know if it is the move to LA. I don't know what it is, but just when he used to complain and stuff when he was in Cleveland, and I was like, man, he's the only one. Like, he got them to the playoffs with the pieces they have. Even though I really like Kevin Love.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like Kevin Love and I like a few. I liked Kyle Korver too. So I mean, I liked a few of the pieces they had. But then I would be like, well, the guy's got the right to complain. It's got to be pretty aggravating, and But then now he's gone to L.A. and I just feel like maybe I've just matured as a basketball fan even in the last year, whereas I was like a casual fan who would watch LeBron. And now I'm actually watching it, and I'm seeing more and more of the post-game interviews and stuff, and seeing more and more of his antics, like with how he acts toward everything, and it's more irritating to me now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't explain exactly why it would be more irritating to me than what it traditionally has been, but it's definitely been more irritating to me lately. So I don't know. All I do know is that I did isolate this clip, and it makes me smile. I've been waiting to show you that all week, that I isolated that clip, and
you should have been peppering that in throughout the episode.
And now I have it.
Now you have it. You might want to. You can save that for Wednesday's show and just pepper it in while we're making our picks.
Okay, I'll do it. I really wanted to have it, but every time I went and looked for it, it always had the first couple seconds where he says the stuff first and then he laughs like at his own joke. But I wanted just the laugh.
Well, now you have it.
That way we have it.
So before the show ends, real quick.
Yeah.
Any UFC day, I do like to get my picks in. The main card has already started, so I'll only do the final four.
Oh, here you go. Hold on.
There we go.
Give you some pick-up music. Okay.
So I will start with. I'll just do the final three. I really don't care about the rest of them. The final three fights today in London are absolutely stacked, especially for an ESPN Plus fight card. This is crazy. So Dominic Reyes is like the new up-and-coming light heavyweight. People want him to win because they want a new, fresh face fighting John Jones. I think that talk gets halted today. I think Volkan Ozdemir absolutely destroys him first-round knockout. That's the only underdog I will be picking. Actually, just kidding. The next one's an underdog as well, but barely. I think Gunnar Nelson gets his hands on Leon Edwards, who is the bigger up-and-coming fighter, but I think he gets his hands on him, takes him to the ground, and I think the guy does what he always does, and he squeezes the life out of the dude, which is going to be too bad because Leon's going to be in front of his hometown crowd, and I think he is going to suck the air from the room.
Oof.
But that'll come back right on time because Darren Till versus Masvidal is the main event. Darren Till is also a Brit. Coming off of that championship fight, he lost to Tyron Woodley, and I was dumb enough to pick him in that fight. I'm going to be smart and pick him this time against Masvidal, who is just going to be like outclassed in every aspect of this fight. I don't believe he can stand with Darren Till. I think if this ends up on the ground somehow, he's going to get his face smashed in. I think he will probably want to go back down a weight class after this fight because Darren Till is going to look like his nickname is. He's going to be a gorilla in there. So.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's some good.
And he's one of my favorite fighters, so obvious bias, but he's also 17-1, and you can tell the UFC is grooming him to be one of their future stars.
That's awesome. And that is happening like as the show's ending, basically, or
it's already the
prelims.
The six fights of the main card. The prelims just ended. The 6 fights of the main card started about 22 minutes ago. But like I said, the first couple are kind of you have to be like a real MMA guy, rooting for some up and comers to get really into the fights that have already happened. But a lot of the local guys are going. That are on the main card are going to start in the next 30 minutes. So that is where I will be.
Pretty good. I like
and
that.
I'm excited because it's in England, which means that I get to stop watching fights before 10 o'clock at night. That's usually what gets me on a lot of these, is that they're not over till 10 or 11, and Papa wants to go do other things.
Well, I think you also don't want to feel like crud in the morning, if you know what I'm saying.
That's also true. Last night I was asleep before most of the time when these fights end. So
yeah. Well, thanks for everybody for listening to the show. I'm glad to be back. Well, Wednesday we will talk about Selection Sunday and our brackets. I'm sure Zach will have some hot tips for your brackets going into this. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants on it this year. I am going to go in it with. I've decided on my bracket this year I'm going to take complete bias on every one of them. I'm just going to take the team I like more over the other team. That's it.
I like it.
That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to, I don't know what team's going to be in there from the Big Sky, but I'll take that team in the first round.
Well, the Big Sky tournament did just end here yesterday, and I still have not even checked to see who won the game. So we're ending today's sports program. We know nothing.
Perfect. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening to the show. Oh, here's a fun one for you, Zach. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend, and go Warriors. And thanks for doing the show again there, Zach. It was good to see you. I miss your laugh. All right. Thanks, everybody.